Hello everyone, Chasing Sports Media. Welcome back to another NFL grades, free agency move grades. We did a part one before if you want to go check it. I just, did 5 random NFL free agency moves. The prior one I did like Jimmy Garoppolo, Jalen Ramsey, Andre Dillard, Javon Hargrave. But without further ado, let's get into it. The first guy we have is C.J. Gardner-Johnson, CJGJ. He was a big name in the market this year and rumored to go back to Philadelphia, rumored not to. It was such a big annoying situation with him. It was a bunch of what ifs and is it gonna happen and videos coming out and whatnot. And end of the day, he signed a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Lions, $6.5 million guaranteed and average annual value $8 million. The Lions snagged him, man. I gave this an A+. I just think it's an A+. I think he's a phenomenal safety. I think he's a young superstar that's going to grow into one, right? But nonetheless, he's a great player, and the Eagles just didn't offer him enough money. And the safety market itself isn't very good. The safety market itself is pretty low. I know the highest deal was like $16 million a year for whoever went to Atlanta, Jesse Bates, I think it was. Or was it Jesse Bates that got that money? And I think CJ wanted something in that range, but again, he's still young, still growing, still progressing. So he didn't get that deal. I said some pros. He's a cheap deal with a young uprising superstar. Give him a year to figure out some cap space and to figure out a deal for him to come back because he's going to be great. They add another turnover threat to this defense. CJGJ is a ball hawk, and he truly is. He tied the league in interceptions this year, and he missed a bunch of games. So there you go. Versatile player, safety or slot corner if needed. We know he played a lot of slot down in New Orleans. This year he played mostly safety, but he does give him that versatility if needed. And they add talent to defense that needed it. As we know, Detroit had a good offense last year, a high-scoring offense. They could go toe-to-toe with it, but it seemed any offense. But the defense was a big issue. The defense was a problem. So adding CJGJ is really good for them. Cons, I said, is a short deal. Price for a new contract, maybe way more expensive by the end of the season. That's always an issue. I really just try to come up with some cons, but there really isn't no real cons, guys. This is a great deal. Can be a bit of a distraction within social media and penalties. I'll give you that. He does get some unnecessary penalties and can be a distraction on social media. So that's definitely one of the cons for Lions. But nonetheless, guys, great pickup, and I give him an A+. Next, we have one of my favorite free agency moves, which is Orlando Brown Jr. to the Bengals. This is good for them, man. They're getting their cornerstone left tackle. Contract length was 4 years. It's a 4-year, $64 million deal with $31.1 million guaranteed and the average annual value of $16 million. So, bit of a big deal, right? A big deal for a tackle, but we know this tackle is an all-pro level tackle, Pro Bowler level tackle, so we know this guy's good, right? We know how Orlando Brown is coming over from the Chiefs to now support Joe Burrow. Pros secured long-term franchise left tackle. The Bengals did. They did secure a long-term franchise left tackle, which is always nice, which is always good to have, right? Supported the frontline protection for franchise QB Joe Burrow. I think that's more important. Then we've seen Joe Burrow have an injury his rookie year, right? Comes in, tears his ACL, so it's important we have somebody there to support him. And getting this guy is so nice, man. And then you just build around it. You just build around Orlando Brown on that front line. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. Has logged at least 1,000 snaps. He's experienced though. He is young, but he's a 4-time Pro Bowler, guys. The guy's a beast. And he's logged a bunch of snaps, so he's just going to add some even more versatility to that line, even more speed, even more strength. Should produce production of Joe Mixon even more. Yeah, run to his side, man. Run to Orlando Brown's side with Joe Mixon, and you're going to see a lot of pressure off of Joe Burrow to make superhero plays. I think that's another part people aren't looking at more, right? Cons. Again, gave it an A+. This was hard to find. Deal could be labeled as a bit above his price range, maybe a little bit expensive, but I don't know, guys. I don't think this is expensive. I think this is perfect for a franchise left tackle. I think you go out there, you be aggressive, and you get your guy, and that's exactly what the Bengals did. All right, next we got Allen Lazard to the Jets that I gave it a B grade to. He got 4 years, $44 million, average annual value of $11 million, total guarantees $22 million. So, the Jets paid for a wide receiver too, someone who really is coming over just because of Aaron Rodgers, right? Because the Jets obviously hope to get Aaron Rodgers, which today they still don't have him, which is quite concerning. But they are trying to get Allen Lazard, there. Well, they did get Allen Lazard there. Trying to get Aaron Rodgers over is what we can clearly see, right? Pros secures the wide receiver 2 position because they did trade Elijah Moore to Cleveland, right? So let's remember that. So we do need to secure that wide receiver 2 spot. He's a tall, deep threat. He's 6'5", 227 pounds. Big boy, right? And we know he can go up and catch it. We know he has a speed to his size, which is nice. So, good deep threat, good end zone threat for them. It gives Rodgers familiar target to work with. We know Rodgers probably is going to want somebody to throw to that he's familiar with, and that's why they signed Allen Lazard. That's why Allen Lazard, they gave him a kind of a decent deal, because they want to make sure that if Rodgers comes there, Rodgers has some targets that he knows can get the connection rolling with. It's really nice to go somewhere and get a connection rolling with somebody that you know. And he brings a blocking ability that is hard to find in wide receivers. Remember, guys, he's so big, he really brings a lot to the blocking side of that aspect of things, right? Running, passing, nonetheless. Cons, this deal can be a bit expensive for a wide receiver 2 caliber player, and like a player like Allen Lazard. I really do think so. $22 million guaranteed, 4 years, $44 million. I just think it's a little bit expensive for Allen Lazard. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's on the brink of being a good player. He got his first year last year, and the next he's coming off a lackluster season. His first year as a starting wide receiver. He's coming off a big lackluster year, so let's remember that. And he relies on his size and physicality quite often, and he does. And he'll have drops, he'll have bad routes, and that's just the truthful things. But hopefully, in a new spot, with a new head coach, but he'll have Rodgers. Maybe he'll prosper. Next, we have Mike McGlinchey to the Broncos, obviously coming from the San Francisco 49ers. He's been the tackle there for a while. I did give this a B-, and I know it's good for the Broncos to be getting a solid tackle, and I understand that, but let's go over it a little more. Contract, 5 years, $87.5 million, average annual value, 17.5, total guaranteed, $52.5 million. A big deal, right? A big deal for Mike McGlinchey. Before we get to the cons, let's start with the pros, like we always do. He posted the second best pass block win rate of his career, 89.6%, and had a career best 81.3% run block win rate, which ranked 5th among all tackles. So, he is coming off of his best season, which is definitely notable, which is definitely great. And he did play the full season in 2022. No injury setback like in 2021 where he did have an injury, and he is 28 years old. So, he is approaching 30. Let's also remember that. But he, is still quite young. No first-round pick for the Broncos, so they did have to address this position somewhere, and they did go out and get their guy. So I do like that they did obviously go out for him and get him, even though they didn't have a first-round pick. That shows their own initiative, right? Cons. Mike McGlinchey has struggled with pass rush at times, 5 sacks and 5 QB hurries allowed in each of 5 seasons. So He does give up sacks, guys, and that's the reason that Russell Wilson has struggled with getting sacked. He's been sacked so many times. I think out of sacked more than any QB in the last 5-10 years or some sort, right? And Mike McGlinchey obviously does let up sacks to a lot of speed pass rushers and a lot of power guys. He does get bullied sometimes on the edge, and we have to remember that. Possible injury concern, because even though he came off a full healthy season, he has had injuries in the past, and he's approaching 30 years old. So naturally, he might be prone to injuries a little more. And I kind of summed it up here. Expensive contract for McGlinchey, has not been great in the pass blocking game, and he hasn't been great. He has been good at times and great at times, honestly. He is coming off a really good season, but it's just a big concern, his pass blocking game. Nonetheless, I did give it a B-. Next, we have James Bradberry re-signing with the Eagles, which is big. Contract length, 3 years, $38 million, with 12.6 annually, average annual value. And we'll have almost $30 million guaranteed with $29.8 million guaranteed. I think this is good for them, man. Coming off the Super Bowl run with a defense we knew was going to take a lot of hits, but they were able to get some of their key pieces back, right? They did lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, yes, but they were able to secure an all-pro cornerback in James Bradberry. And that brings us into our first pro, able to secure an all-pro cornerback for cheap, man. They did. Not a lot of money. $38 million for 3 years with an all-pro cornerback. This is definitely a pay cut, and he knows it. And I think he knows it's a pay cut to try to secure even more talent around him, which is great. We always love that, man. We always love that. Coming off of his second highest rated season in terms of PFF grade and PFF coverage. Again, yes, he's getting older, but he's coming off of his second highest rated season. That's awesome, man. That's awesome for a player playing at his caliber. But yeah, that definitely shows a lot of promise in this contract. We'll work alongside cornerback Darius Slay. Eagles will have a strong cornerback duo once again. Yep, you're keeping 2 almost lockdown quarterbacks together. Although they're getting a little older, they'll definitely be able to coach up a young guy or two. But this team, they'll be good for another 3 years, man. And that's all you want to see. You want to see a good duo of cornerbacks. Cons, 29, almost 30. Age concern will be in play. Yeah, he is almost 30 years old, and that does have to be kind of noted because not all lockdown quarterbacks um, are 30 something years old, but nonetheless, that's still I think going to be really really nice. And new defensive scheme, as we know, Jonathan Gannon did go to the Cardinals, who was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles last season, so they will be. James Bradbury will have to adjust to Sean Desai this year from Seattle. So, yeah, he'll have to adjust, but nonetheless, I gave it an A. I think it's a good move for them. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Go ahead and put the post notification bell on. Subscribe, like this video. Thank you guys for all the support. Nonetheless, guys, have a great day.